Welcome back to Top 10 or Top 20 Strongest Shinigami Class Shinigami or Captain Class Shinigami. Sorry. And we are on the final 10 now. We're at the 50% mark, the top 10. And obviously by the title and the image you can tell. In my opinion, the 10th strongest Captain Class Shinigami is Mayuri Kurotsuchi. So, and by the by, I mentioned after re-looking over Soy Phone a little bit and doing that video that I could actually see a scenario where she actually beats him more often than not than he beats her. But the thing about that was, and here's the kicker of it, is that even if I had given her a win over him, that actually wouldn't have changed the placement. Looking at who got wins and who got losses here and just evening it out, it actually wouldn't have changed the order of where these guys placed it all. So yeah, Mayuri I think comes at number 10. Now, why does Mayuri, why do I believe he comes at number 10? Why do I think he's the 10th strongest out of 20 different Captain Class Shinigami? Well, it comes down to a litany of reasons. A, he is among the most intelligent characters in the series. He's not quite where Horror eyes him, but he's probably he's basically right below them. He thinks he surpassed Urahara, because of Nemu and all that stuff. I finally beat you, Urahara Kisuke. It's like, did you really? He's a very effective tactician, but more than anything else, he's just very tricky. He has a litany of things that he has invented and has at his disposal to fight with. Now, we can't give him all of them. We're not going to give him, for instance, the Kurotsuchi Corp Squad. We're not going to be giving him things like certain drugs that he would have. For instance, not thought in him, but a drug they used on Kagerosa in the filler, because that's filler. We actually don't even know if he has that one in real life. He very well might, but we can't say it. He does. The superhuman drug, for instance, even though he keeps a vial of it on him, and it's also inside Nemu's body, as far as we know, he can't administer it on his own. He might be able to administer it with his Zanpakuto. In fact, that might, because his Zanpakuto seems to rely on poison, that actually might be a ability of his Zanpakuto that we're just never made privy to, but upon seeing him use certain abilities, might just be something he can do, because he's a master of modifying his Zanpakuto, is that he can basically put any one of his poisons in the Zanpakuto and activate it. Probably only one at a time, though, just so the opponent isn't overwhelmed and choosing which one to actually inflict on him. But he's also a master of gathering data. He's has a regeneration serum that we see him use. It hurts. My, how this hurts. As he regrows up, almost enough to make me lose my mind. It hurts. So he's got that. He's got his reishi boots, which are really cool. His Hirankaku shoes allowed him to perform the Quincy move technique by gathering reishi under him. I think that's awesome. He's basically got jet butsu. He also has a nerve freezing agent, a drug injected into the nerves of an organism which forcefully freezes any organs connected to those nerves. Upon open eyelids will remain open. Hearts will not expand or contract, and the mouth will become unable to open and shut. The blood of the organism also coagulates, effectively killing the target. Once the drug begins to take effect, the skin becomes dark color red, almost like rust. However, this can be countered if the target skin divides into multiple layers. This is how Pranita was able to avoid it. So he's got a lot of unique. One of the things he does is a lot of unique drugs. The precognition drug is another one that he used to beat zombie Toshiro. The precognition drug, it basically it causes you the effects. The effects cause the user to enter like a time loop in their mind during battle. Whenever they kill Mayuri, they are sent back to a certain point in time and forced to battle him again. So only the way to exit the loop is not to kill Mayuri. However, the drugs affects the hippocampus section of the brain, which governs short-term memory. Going back more than 10 times will cause the user to experience a complete body paralysis for 30 seconds due to the part of the brain that controls the user's sense of balance being temporarily shut down. Now again, how he administered the drug, I'm guessing it was through his Zanpakuto, though I don't know. Let me see if I can get to that part in the story, because I got the wiki up here telling the story and stuff like that. I want to see where they actually mentioned that part. Okay, so attacks the guy who dodges and unleashes a keto net from his sleeve. Hits guy, attacks again. Mayuri blocks his sword and continues to power rightly, explaining that recently equipped Agisogi Jizo with a sensor that allows him to parry swords that are within 2 feet of him. So there you go. You probably have that as well. Attempts to knee him, blocks with his thing. Okay, so X blocks. So, however, here's again. I'm trying to see where he administered and how he administered the drug hits a guy. Really experiencing drug that takes the past. Scar falls are going to explain the drug mobilized user, blah blah blah. Yeah, that's the thing, is that he basically said, do you know when the drug was administered? While he laments on how sad is these drugs and such as long as this to use defenses individually, he notes that it's a guy screaming for him to stop will make it a little easier because he's a sadistic son of a bitch. That's the thing, though. He never explains how and when the drug was administered. So that drug possibly doesn't need, for him to stab with his Zanpakuto in order to do that. Other than that, though, he's not a sword master per se, but he is quite skilled. He's skilled enough to use his sword effectively. But he's no good in like a straight-on sword fight. That's why he had to put the item on there, or the device equipped to his sword. Apparently, according to Shunshi Kyoraku, he's actually a Keto expert. Maybe not a master, but he's one of the most proficient Keto users in the Soul Society. Capable of using destructive forms of Keto silently from his palms, his hands, blasting holes through walls, and instantly creating Keto barriers to protect others. We rarely see this of him, though, but I have to take into consideration that he is, in fact, a Keto master. He's also a Shunpo expert, easily able to keep up with Yoroshida's Hirankaku. Obviously, being a captain, he's got captain level Ryatsu. His sword, though, obviously, now we're getting into his Shikai and Bankai, is Ashisogi Jizo. Akisoshi Jizo, the leg-cutting guardian, as it's known as. It basically takes the form, as you can see there, of a weird gold trident with a baby face on there. Now, its main ability seems to be work like the venom of the spider's bite. It paralyzes an opponent, its stats, severing his brain signals controlling neural impulses for movements in the limbs of the victim, regardless of where they were struck. So it doesn't matter where you strike, your body's going limp, but you still feel pain. That's the creepy thing, is that you will still experience a great deal of pain. There is another technique that with Agisogi Jizo Kyodo Yon, or leg cutting Jizo Terra Magnitude 4. Mayuri sticks his finger in one of the eyes of the baby's head on the sword, causing it to begin to leak a dark fluid while the baby opens his mouth to scream. Anyone not on Mayuri's blood who hears the scream for 4 seconds will be paralyzed. In contrast to Agisogi Jizo's ability to only stop the neural impulses of movements, this technique completely paralyzes everything biologically. Yet if you were still a monster of an individual like Kenpachi, you could still move your eyes, which Mayuri even points to say, you can still move your eyes. You really are a monster. So there are ways to circumvent some of these abilities. Remember, a Shinigami battle is a battle of Ryatsu. If your Ryatsu can overpower the abilities of someone else. Again, Aizen's a perfect example. His Ryatsu overpowered the 2-step kill of Suzumebachi, which normally is an instant kill the moment it hits the second time. But his Ryatsu just overpowered it. I am willing to believe that there are examples in this case too where Ryatsu could overpower these abilities to some degree. His Bankai, Konjiki Akisogi Jizo, is, for those of you who just need a reminder, is this fucked up thing. It is the giant caterpillar baby that can release giant swarms of that can shoot giant retractable blades from its chest, but its end is just very large and powerful in its own right. But most importantly, is capable of spewing a very deadly poison out through an area about 200 meters around Konjiki Agisogi Jizo's, basically like a giant circle, and he's the epicenter. It's almost impossible to avoid. However, even if an opponent still doesn't breathe the poison, it still seeps in through their skin. Mayuri, someone with enough Ryatsu, though, can just repel it, though. As evident when Kenpachi did it in the the Zanpakuto arc, where the Zanpakuto spirits rebelled. Yes, that's not canon, but still, things like that, because Tite Kubo did have a hand in designing like the designs and stuff, so it's very likely that is kind of how that would play out. For instance, against someone like a Kenpachi, the poison actually would just be repelled. And then, of course, we know he can modify his Bankai. But the thing is, you won't see him modify his Bankai in any of these fights because these are fights where it's got to be on a neutral ground. Truth be told, Mayuri, in theory, has the potential to be able to beat any Captain Class Shinigami. Even Aizen, given enough time and prep. It's a matter of finding a way to counteract the abilities he's going up against. In theory, he could beat anyone. In theory. And even that theory isn't 100%. Like, for instance, I would love to figure out how he beats Ichimonji in a fight odds. Which, actually, let's get to that now that we're into this. First off, before anything, let's go over the lieutenants real quick, because I don't have their images here, because at this point now, we've reached the characters that just beat all the lieutenants. That's basically it. So, Ikkaku. Ikkaku doesn't fare up against Mayuri because he doesn't care about getting hit. The minute Mayuri cuts him, and Mayuri will cut him, it's done. The fight's done because he can't move at that point, and he has no abilities that even if you're holding his... It's not like Zenbon Zakura, where if he cuts Byakuya and Byakuya can't move, he can still activate Zenbon Zakura and actually use that to fight. And eventually the poison will wear off, assuming. Against... Who else who were the other lieutenants? I gotta remember real quick here. Against Renji. Again, it's a similar problem to Ikkaku. Now, he's stronger than Ikkaku. I definitely believe that. His Zanbakuto is more versatile and even has a Kido ability to it. Mayuri, though, is a very crafty and wary individual in his own right. He's not going to get into a fight that he doesn't believe he can win. Especially at the same time, though, he also, I forgot to mention, he also has the implants in his body, too, including the rocket-propelled arm, like on a wire, the sickle blade attached to his Kusagiri, are they called? I believe. Where is that? He's got a what is it? Extends his left arm. Says himself. Where is that? Oh, hidden Kusagiri. Excuse me, Kusari Gama. Sorry, hidden Kusari Gama. He's quite skilled with it too, but as he was able to just fight Uryu just with ease. But yes, against Renji, they'd be able to keep Renji at a distance. And again, because Renji's style is a very close-up personal fighting style, Mayuri being able to get a hit in is not hard for him to do. Add on to the fact that he is a Kido master or expert, apparently. He would be able to keep Renji at a distance, maybe tie him up with a Bakudo or something like that, or a Riru Jukoro, the one where the 5 points can't move. Kazeshini was an interesting one for me to put up again. I'm like, okay, how does that work? Because honestly, in terms of actually fighting like a blade, like a dangerous opponent, then yeah, Kurosira, I think Kazeshini is actually more dangerous than Agisogi Jizo, in my opinion, because it's just more unpredictable. And as Shuhei put it, it looks like it was meant for reaping lives. But with that said, it really does. Its abilities would work in terms of if he gets cut or something like that, heal up a wound, but it doesn't stop the poison. And even if he went into Bankai, it wouldn't really matter because he can't really. He really doesn't have much of a way to stop the poison. So even though they would both be tied together, Mayuri would be just like, very interesting. But unfortunately, your Bankai only heals physical wounds. It will not protect you from the poison, Agisogi Jizo. So there you go. That's how he would beat Kazeshini. Or that's how you beat Shinji. I would also like to note that I actually forgot to put a captain on this list for images. So just getting over to Shinji real quick. Shinji, I think, as I mentioned in the last video, actually would not be able to beat Mayuri. He would be able to get a one-up on Mayuri for a little bit because of Sakanare's abilities, but ultimately Mayuri is smart enough to the point and clever enough to figure out what's going on and basically pull an Aizen and basically be like, it's a very cute trick, but once you figure it out, it's not really that hard to overcome it. So there you go. So anyway, moving on now to the actual guys whose images I actually remember to put on here. So all those he actually beat. That you have Yamamoto and Ichimonji. Again, we're not going with if he had time to prep. And even then, I don't know if he could beat Zaka no Tachi. I just don't know if he could do that. He might be able to design something to deal with Ryojin Jika's flames, similar to how Aizen made Wonder Ice. But I don't know if he could deal with Zaka no Tachi, just because you literally have to deal with the heat of the sun in your vicinity. You might fry before you get close enough to use whatever you have. But with that being said, how would Mayuri stack up to Yama? Well, at this point, we're now getting into the matches. We're going up against the head captain and the head of the Zero Squad. The remaining top 8, I guess you could say, because these guys are obviously in the top 10. The remaining 8 fighters that these guys would be going up against, not even including each other, so 9, I guess, fare better just because they're on a bit of a higher plane than the first 10. Mayuri, unfortunately, though, isn't one who would really fare that well against him. His abilities just aren't tailored to dealing with someone who can spam this much power, including fire and elemental damage. Yamamoto, he might be a Kido expert. Yamamoto's a Kido master. He's a far better physical combatant, and that's one of Mayuri's big Achilles heels, is that he is not a physical fighter in the least. That's why I really had to rethink my Soifone fight a little bit. It's like, would Soifone actually? Because Soifone completely overwhelms him in a hand-to-hand fight. And Yama would do the same. He's a better swordsman. He's had more experience. Even if Mayuri activates Bankai and tries to spew poison, I doubt the poison would make it past the flames. They probably would just incinerate on the contact with the flames. Now, Mayuri isn't dumb, though. He wouldn't try to just head-on attack Yama. But at the same time, Yamamoto is just able to close a distance like that and overwhelm an opponent if he really needs to. His spiritual pressure alone probably, I wouldn't say dwarfs. I don't think there's any captain in the Soul Society that Yama actually dwarfs. Like, if there's no captain where Yamamoto's a 10, they're a 1 comparatively. I don't believe that. That said, if Yama's a 10, Mayuri's probably only like a 3 or a 4. Like, he is very much beyond a lot of the captains in terms of just straight power. And if by chance he had to go Bankai against Mayuri, Mayuri's Bankai would be incinerated, like that. There's nothing Mayuri could do at that point. Ichibe and Ichimonji are a little difficult to really pin down, unfortunately. And the reason for that is, again, I don't know if Ichimonji could just look at his Zanpakuto and immediately know not just Agisogi Jizo, but what Agisogi Jizo could do. Like, I don't know if Otetsu can just know what a Zanpakuto does just because he made the Zanpakuto and has their spirits. I just don't know about that, per se. Yeah, he can clearly recognize the Zanpakuto, sure, and he makes them, or he created it, but I don't know if Ichibe can look at something, know its name, and know what it can do. It can certainly look at something and know its name, but I don't know if it can know what it can do. Add on to the fact that just by crossing blades, Mayuri has the device that basically lets him counter a strike. He's screwed against Ichimonji, because at that point, Agisogi Jizo's name gets cut in half. And this is actually the fun part. I always like to think of what the actual name would be when it's cut in half. It's no longer Agisogi Jizo. Fortunately, both Agisogi is an 8-letter word, and Jizo's 2. So if you cut that in half, I would say it's Sogizo. Sogizo. So now because Sogizo, its powers are completely cut in half, Mayuri is just kind of screwed at this, especially if the ink gets on it. Yeah, Mayuri really would not fare well against either of these guys. So that's my thoughts quickly on that. Against Soifone, I mentioned that I am a little on the fence whether actually I do think Soifone would win against Mayuri or not. The truth is that if Soifone were to ultimately overwhelm him fast enough, just rush him, speed blitz him, she actually probably would take the win. The problem is that, again, Mayuri's a very crafty individual. If he can get any one of his poisons in on her, then she's got a problem. The problem is they never actually said how Mayuri got the poison into Hitsugaya. Got that drug into Hitsugaya. My guess is he somehow injected it, that or it was aerosolized. But if he's a zombie at that point, he's not breathing, so it couldn't be aerosolized. It might have been absorbed through the skin, but we never even saw him activate the damn drug. So it's really weird. Now that does speak to his abilities, though. He's able to do that without any real issue. So take that for what it's worth. But I don't know. I mean, it's clear that her Bankai and his Bankai would actually beat each other, because the poison obviously would overwhelm her. She couldn't survive that, but his Bankai can't survive the missile barrage that is, or tactical nuke that is her Bankai. And if she's at a distance where she can fire it and not be affected by the poison, she's going to win that fight. Like I said, though, near the beginning, even if I had given Soifo the win, it actually would not have changed her placing on this list, as it turns out. Nor would it have changed Mayuri's. So this one I'll actually call a bit of a wash, because it's actually very difficult. She could easily two-step kill him, but the fact is his body is very tricky. He could actually maybe slice off a part of his body and resuture it within seconds, as he did with Pranita. He actually, when his arm got possessed for a moment, it was about to be turned to an equal, he actually restructured the nerves within fractions of seconds. So he is very difficult to actually take by surprise, ultimately. Then dealing against the 2 Squad 3 captains. Again, I was a little surprised. Mayuri, I think, actually beats the majority of these guys. He beats Rose simply on the grounds that Rose would get cocky. All he has to do is activate his Bankai, and Rose is done. Because, yeah, he's overwhelming Mayuri, but Mayuri, quite frankly, can just be like, okay, yep, I'm done now. I'm out of here now, homie. And basically just, kind of get out of the way while the poison's taking effect. Or if it's a battle of, melee to melee, if he had to. Rose's whip, it's a bit more of a dangerous weapon in terms of melee combat, simply because it can grab onto things. And particularly something as awkward as Agi Sugiji's design, that's something that's actually easier to grab onto. There's more to grab onto, I suppose is the best way to put it. But I still give Mayuri the advantage because, again, he would be smart enough to avoid these tricks, probably smart enough to actually take out his own eardrums, similar to Master Masculine, then just activate his Bankai and then regenerate his eardrums with his drugs. So there you go. Gin is a really tricky one. I was actually tempted to give Gin the win over Mayuri simply on Kamishina no Yari's ability to, break things down on the cellular level with the poison. The problem, again, would be taking Mayuri by surprise with that. Shinso alone is a simplistic but effective Zanpakuto. At the same time, though, Mayuri could definitely catch it off guard. If, for instance, you know how Trident's design, especially as you look at Agi Sogiji's design. If he were to say catch Shinso within one of the 2 gaps in the Trident, and then move his Trident, basically hold his Trident taut, and basically hold the blade there, he might be able to keep Shinso in place. It might even be hard for him to retract the blade. Against Kamishina no Yari, I will admit that came off very difficult for me to decide, because Kamishina no Yari could easily just slice his Bankai straight down. The problem here, again, comes with the fact of the poison, where, what's the best way to put it? Yeah, he could slice the Shikai and the Bankai, or the Bankai straight down. But the Bankai more than likely can block his Bankai as well, just due to the fact that while Kamishina no Yari is a very dangerous Zanpakuto, and very fast and very long, not as fast or long as he claimed to be, but still very fast, very long, it's also very predictable if you know where it's coming from. It's a very linear Zanpakuto. Now, he can, you want to use Butodon, or Buto dance, basically, where he made 100,000s of blades just appear randomly in front of him against Ichigo. That could throw the blade off. It could throw Agi Sogijizo off. But I think ultimately adding Mayuri's trickiness, including the fact that he wouldn't just be using the Bankai, he would probably be using other tricks as well. The fact that he is a Kido master, or expert initially, or allegedly. The fact that he does know how to plan. The fact that he has the nerve agent. The fact that he has all of this. I think while Gin could beat Mayuri. And again, this is another scenario where we're looking at, I'm like, I might have had to reconsider it on some level. Although, again, though, I don't think I actually would have changed Gin's placing. That said, it might have changed. Actually, no, I take it back. It still, believe it or not, would not have changed the placing on here. They all would have lined up still exactly the same. They just would have gotten a couple extra wins. How about that? So yeah, even if Gin does win, it doesn't actually change Mayuri's placing on the list. But still, it'd be a very unique fight to be dealing with. Unohana, though. Unohana is a weird one. Because Unohana is one of the few I actually think Mayuri might have been able to win against. And this is due mostly to the fact that he has the ability to use poison. Actually, why I'm looking at this right now and realizing, wait, why did I have him win against Unohana? So she's a better swordsman than him, hands down. I'm actually trying to rationalize this in my head because I'm looking at it as like, this is actually starting to not make sense, because why did I give Mayuri a win over Unohana? Did I mean for Unohana to win? I think, and I'm just going off of what I'm thinking here right now, I think because she's had such knowledge in Kaido to heal herself, she may have a very wide knowledge of poisons as well. So, but I don't know if she has the ability to just remove poison from her system. That, I think, is why I gave him the win. Because she will come in, she will be a brutal beast to him, but she won't care if she gets injured because she's got the ability to heal her physical wounds. But because of the nature of his Zanpakuto, she'll go numb initially, and that would possibly give him the opening to win and kill her. Even if she's able to remove the poison, it's still one of those things where he would just be able to cut her again. And it's not like him where he can develop immunity to these things. It's actually kind of interesting. I'm really wondering, like, why did I give him a win over her? Because honestly, from the way her Bankai seems to be depicted as a acid of some kind, I would really give that win to her then, because she's just going to melt his Bankai down to the bone, melt him down to the bone. And her Kaido's apparently skilled enough that she can regenerate from such things. But I don't know. I'm actually, this is another one. I'm actually thinking, why did I give him a win over her? Must have been because of the poison of his Bankai. Or it had to have been that reason. Otherwise, I would have given her the win. And again, I am now actually rethinking, like, do I have to redo this entire video series? Right now I won't, but down the road, again, if we get more information about certain characters down the road, I'll redo this series, because at this point now I'm like wondering, like, okay, yeah, something's not sitting right in my head here. Like, this doesn't feel right. In which case, if Mayuri had lost this fight, actually, oh my god, as amazing as it is for me to say, no, I take it back. If Mayuri had lost this fight, this actually would have placed him much lower on the list at this point. Fortunately, I will say, because of the poison of Agisogi Jizo, I will give him the win for now. But I'm going to have to re-look at that one. Definitely that one. Soifon's definitely on the call to be looked at. And Gin, again, is another one to be looked at. Either way, yeah, for right now, I will say he would take the edge over Unohana, only on the grounds that his poison wouldn't be something she'd expect, and he'd be able to capitalize on it, despite her healing abilities. Next up is Byakuya, and on this round, unfortunately, Byakuya, look, I'm actually one of the people who doesn't like Byakuya that much, only because he's a very overemphasized, overstated, fan favorite. All the girls love him to the point where I'm pretty sure Kupo let him live because people complained. But I'm not going to argue that he's not powerful. Like, he's extremely well-rounded. He's a master swordsman, clearly better than Mayuri. He is a Kido master as well, probably on the same level, if not higher than Mayuri. We've seen him use Kido far more often than Mayuri, so we know how good at Kido he is. His Zanbakuto is actually much more versatile than Mayuri, to the point where I actually think if you go Bankai, the sheer mass of Zanbon Zakara Kageyoshi would be enough to keep the poison at bay. So because it'd probably be gusting of wind, it would be just blowing back the effects of it, and it would just tear his Bankai to cinders. Now, there is that little ability that we have to also keep in mind, and this might be where I had also given him the win over some. Agisogi Jizo, what was it? Damn it, where's that ability? Agisogi Jizo, Kyodo, or Terror Magnitude 4. There is that ability, and I think that's where those wins were also coming from. Where if someone hears the scream for 4 seconds, they're done. But the thing about it is, assuming they don't have the Ryatsu to overpower that, and assuming that they're going to just sit there and listen to it for 4 seconds. It's also implied that he might need to stab someone, because he did stab Kenpachi when he used that ability. Now, that might be because he stabbed him thinking that would stop the effects of Pernida on Kenpachi, and he saw that it didn't, so he then had to go into another effect of his Shikai. That might be the case. Either way, Byakuya is someone who probably wouldn't allow him to capitalize on that very quickly. He's also clearly faster than Mayuri, because while Mayuri is fast, we've seen Byakuya is actually one of the fastest captains. He's maybe not the fastest, but he's comparable to someone like Soifun, who may arguably be the fastest, Yamamoto, Kiraku, all the faster captains. He's in the ranks of the faster captains, definitely. So factoring all that in, Byakuya does come in as someone who beats Mayuri. We're past 30-minute mark. I spent so much time listing Mayuri's abilities that it's now starting to bite me in the butt a bit. Moving on real quick now, we got Sajin Komamura. Sajin would flat out lose to Mayuri. There's no doubt in my mind that he would lose to Mayuri and lose hard. The reason for this, quite frankly, is just due to the fact that he's too blunt of a fighter. He's too direct. He's pretty much just brute force. And he's really not a good strategist, ultimately. Komamura, as much as I do like him, I don't hate Komamura's character at all. He's really not a very strong captain. He gets beaten quite often. And because his Zanpakuto is so thoroughly connected, Mayuri, quite frankly, might just have to... all he might have to do is stab the giant, and then Komamura's screwed. So... even if he doesn't, he's got enough abilities to do damage to the giant that would hurt Komamura. So, unfortunately, yeah, Sajin would lose very thoroughly to Mayuri. Mayuri, though, does lose to Shunsui. There's a reason that Shunsui's the head captain. Katen Kyotsu is one of the strongest Zanpakutos we've ever seen because of just how versatile and unique it is. It's very hard to predict what game is going to come out and then have to play the game. Kiraku also has an experience advantage over Mayuri. He was a captain long before Mayuri was even a Soul Reaper. Add on to the fact that he's just as experienced, easily as knowledgeable in Kido as Mayuri is. Clearly capable of swords and more capable than Mayuri. And his Bankai is nuts. If this fight goes Bankai to Bankai, yes, Mayuri's poison would affect Kiraku, but in that same vein, he'll immediately feel the effects of the poison because any injury put on the opponent in the first dawn of the Bankai is put on you, is put on the opponent. Then go into the next one where he would just inflict the disease onto Mayuri, then go into the abyss, and then finally sever Mayuri's head. Yeah, Kiraku would kill Mayuri. I have no doubt about it. If these two met in a fight, he would kill Mayuri. Because he's also, just like Mayuri, he has no problem fighting nerdy whatsoever. Then you have the two ninth seed captains, Kaname Tozen and Kensei. This is the last group of individuals that he was able to beat, in my mind. As we've gone over everyone else, is that Kensei, he's too direct. Mayuri would easily be able to predict where he's coming from and easily be able to capitalize on that. Whether he ministers a drug, whether he cuts him, whether he just basically freezes him biologically, or with magnitude 4, terror magnitude 4, that's the game then. Against Kaname, he is a trickier opponent. None of his Shikai is really going to do anything to Mayuri. Again, Suzumushi Nishiki, it looks like it's about overpowering your opponent's senses with your own Ryatsu. So a captain level fighter really isn't going to matter in that case. Bennett Hiko, a lot of blades, be very dangerous, but Mayuri can survive a lot worse than that. If he tries to use his Bankai, that would be a problem. But similar to Kenpachi, it's a similar issue that, or a reason that he would beat Kaname, and the same reason that Kenpachi beat Tozen. It's that while he doesn't have the innate sense of a warrior and a combat sense like Kenpachi or Ikaku does, he is smart enough to figure out what's going on and then capitalize on that. Add on to the fact, all he has to really do is activate his Bankai, flood the area of poison, and just wait him out. And then basically just stab himself, turn himself to goop, and just wait him out and kill Kaname. So there you go. But yeah, Kaname would prove a trickier opponent, definitely. Everyone else, unfortunately, I do think he does not fare up well against. Against Toshiro, don't think he really fared that well against Toshiro. Now, why didn't he fare well against Toshiro? Well, if I'm going to be honest, it comes to the contention that Toshiro's ice makes for... The only reason he beat Toshiro was because he was a zombie. Let's be honest. He had no free will. Yeah, he had no free will. So he was able to be easily caught off guard. If you have him on a good day where he's not caught off guard and has free will to think and use all of his abilities, he really does trounce most of what Mayuri could dish out of him. He can keep his distance. He can come in close if he wants to. He can pretty much freeze up any of Mayuri's abilities. Even if he gets hit by magnitude 4, the thing about that is he still is holding Hyorin Maru. He still has Hyorin Maru on him, so he can still activate abilities of Hyorin Maru. So even if he got hit by the Terra Magnitude 4, he could still envelop Mayuri in ice and keep him there until the effects wore off. So yeah, it's kind of odd. It is kind of odd, but I would say Toshiro would beat Mayuri. Not though for sheer experience. On sheer experience, Mayuri has him. He's older. He's had a lot more time to, strategize, and he is a better strategist than Toshiro. But ultimately, Toshiro's ability, he could easily just freeze the Bankai straight there. And I'm not talking about older Toshiro, like his final form, his full power. I am talking about just straight Toshiro. So, yeah, I would give that win to him. Against Kenpachi. Now, I've been using the Kenpachi just because he was able to paralyze Kenpachi. Doesn't mean he'd actually beat Kenpachi. It was about the situation. I've been using that example a lot when I'm talking about these videos. But it holds true. Just because he got that stab in on Kenpachi and he was able to use the effect of his Shikai on Kenpachi does not mean that these two actually met in a fight. He would beat Kenpachi. Frank, I don't think he would beat Kenpachi. Now, why? Well, first off, the poison of his Bankai, as the anime showed, against the anime, but that's kind of a realistic depiction of what would most likely happen. He would just blow the poison away and then slice the Bankai straight down. That's just what he would do. Kenpachi's Ryatsu is pretty much, save for Aizen, he has the most Ryatsu of anyone left in the Soul Society. That's pretty much a... Okay, fact might not be true, because we haven't met everyone in the Soul Society. Maybe that's not the case, but I think it's pretty safe to assume, and I think most people would agree on that, Kenpachi has the most Ryatsu of pretty much anyone, again, minus maybe Ichigo and Aizen. That's about, and maybe the Zero Division. Even that is contestable. It's actually very possible he's stronger than a good portion of the Zero Division, because we didn't see most of those sons of bitches fight. I mean, just from the little I know about the Zero Division, I'd say he's probably stronger than Hikifu. The one who developed the Gigai, the woman. The one who developed the Shiakuso, the woman. And I can't remember their names. And the guy who developed the healing techniques. I'd say he might be stronger than them. Either way, so his Shiryatsu actually would likely stave off a lot of the effects of Mayuri. If Mayuri could administer any of the drugs on Kenpachi, they might work. And I say that because of his Ryatsu, it's very possible he could actually burn through a lot of the effects of Mayuri's drugs, just because his Ryatsu is that potent. And we've seen that. It acts like an armor. It can blow away poisons. Even though we'll go into a little bit of the film, he's not affected by a lot of, he's actually not hindered by certain ketos very much. He can survive the vacuum of space just because his body, he's that durable and monstrous that Mayuri would really have to try hard just to actually injure him. If it was actually coming down to a straight fight. And that's assuming his eye patch is on. If the eye patch is off, see, we saw what happened when he was able to get the drop pick Kenpachi and save him during Pernida, but his eye patch was on. His full power wasn't released. It's actually not stated how much of his power is sealed in with that eye patch. I think it's supposed to be like 80% of his power sealed away or something like that. as far as I know. It's like it eats up a serious amount of his actual power. So if his eye patch is released and his full energy is released, I don't think most of Mayuri's tricks will work on Kenpachi. Add on to the fact that his Kenpachi Shikai is just pure destruction. If those two clashed and he was in Shikai, he's going to cleave right through Akisoka Chiso. And then that's not even factoring his Bankai, which is just pure utter destruction put into a physical body. So on the fact that I just don't think he has anything to deal with Kenpachi's sheer power on his regular person. Again, given enough time, he could beat just about any one of these individuals. But again, he doesn't really have anything to deal with that kind of level of sheer power right out the gate. Also against Urahara. Urahara is someone who, because he plans for literally nearly every option or alternative in the fight, he would be able to pretty much counter anything Mayuri threw at him. Like Mayuri, not mention the fact that he's a better swordsman by far than Mayuri is. Better hand-to-hand combat. He's a Kido master, whereas Mayuri's just an exceptional Kido user. And again, when you're talking about strategy, as clever as Mayuri is, he can't outmatch Urahara in terms of strategy. He just can't do that. The magnitude 4, Kisuke might fall to that. He might. But that's assuming he lets it happen. Like, the minute that Mayuri tries to use it, he probably counteracts it and attacks Mayuri. He does. Like, he maybe tries to take off Mayuri's head or something like that, and Mayuri has to stop the attack. And then you get into Bankai to Bankai. He could restructure Mayuri's Bankai to be completely harmless. So I just think Urahara, from a strategic and versatility standpoint, completely outclasses Mayuri in this case. So yeah, my money would be Urahara in that match. And last but not least, I actually don't think he can beat Rukia. Now, why don't I think that? Well, assuming he can't administer a drug on her, and even if he did, she could turn her body, she can actually go absolute zero. She could actually, in theory, freeze the drug in her system, and then it's done. Think about that for a second. A way to counteract the poison getting in you is to freeze it out, is just to basically annihilate its existence. The problem here is that the way her sword works, it basically lowers the temperature even further. Further and further and further it goes. The fact is, if they make contact, his blade's going to start to freeze. He needs to be careful of that. If he tries to throw Kido, she's just as good as Kido as he is. She is a Kido master. She is a master of using Kido. So they tie for Kido. Flashed up, they're probably about equal. We never really see her flashed up compared to others that much. Swordsmanship-wise, she's actually pretty skilled, so I would say they're probably equal as well. The thing is, though, he needs to stab someone in order for that to work. And even if he decides to go with a magnitude 4, and that does work, her Bankai is actually one of those things where I'm not supposed to move with my Bankai. So, okay, she just Bankai, and then just freezes him and just fly freezes him dead. It's really one of those weird things where she's kind of an antithesis to him a little bit, where he can't really affect her at all, but she can affect him. And that's not to say he couldn't win. Like, if he poisons her, even if she goes Bankai, it's possible that it's not going to work. But it's also possible it will work. So, ultimately, I will give the overall win to Rukia in that regard. I think Rukia would win. But it's just because she could easily end the match if she needed to. And the fact that he could paralyze her, but she'd still be aware of things, is like, crap, okay, Bankai, boom, and then, yeah, flash freeze, and then done. And then she kind of just stuck there for a while. Anyway, that is the number 10 spot for this video. But again, looking back on it, Mayuri might lose a couple more of those fights now that I think about it. I think one of the big reasons I gave him as many wins as I did is because of that freaking magnitude Terror 4, or Terror Magnitude 4. That technique was a little tricky. Had he not had that, I might have given more individuals wins over him. But that does come out to be a little tricky, more than a bit. So, either way, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. As always, if you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. ideas for who would win, Star Wars, Super Magic, what if, anything to do with the channel, put that in the comments below as well. I'll get to that at some point. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Hit that bell if you want a notification.